Welcome back to Georgie's Gorgeous Gifts. I'm Tony and today we're going to be making some of these lovely little spooky free-form Halloween ghosts. So I'm starting off with two different types of plastic and two plates. I've got a large plate here and a small plate. These are ones that I use regularly for crafting. So no, we don't need to add in or off them afterwards. But I'm using packaging from my Amazon parcels. So we've got two types of plastic here, as you've just seen. We've got the thicker type, which is on the big plate, and we've got the thinner plastic, the type of plastic that you would usually receive a silicone mould inside. I wouldn't really recommend using anything thinner, like cling film or cling wrap, as you call it in the US, because that just really doesn't work. Or if it does, it's an absolute nightmare to get the cling wrap off after. So I'm starting off with adding these little gemstones into some resin. Now this is in fact resin that I'd mixed up for a previous project and had some left and thought, right, I'll use this for the stones. But by the time I'd mixed up the next batch, this lot had probably been sat there about 45-50 minutes and was really, really thick and gloopy and really quite difficult to work with at this point. But what could I do? The stones were already in the resin and I'd used up all of both pots. I mean, don't get me wrong, as you can imagine, I'm not short of a gem or two in my drawers, but I specifically wanted the 2 packets of crystals that I'd bought specifically just for these ghosts. And because these were real crystals and not imitation, they weren't that cheap either. So that was a lot of the reason why I didn't start again. So I had no choice, I was already committed. To make it a bit more workable, I added some of the newer batch of resin to the top. Just enough so that what was in the cup was a lot more workable. So it took that long to get all these stones around this plate that it's all started to pull into the middle. So I'm just scraping it all back up onto the edges as far as I can, right onto the edge of the plate. I want these just to be a ring around the base. So on to the next one, and I do exactly the same thing. This time I've got these gorgeous little pinky purple crystals that are mixed with the odd gold and black. Like I say, because they are real crystals and not imitations, there wasn't that many to begin with, and I'd used up the entire pot just to put round this plate. But the problem was, because this resin is that thick, at this point I'm really struggling to pop it around the edge of this plate. And because it took so long, like the obsidian, it just kept moving to the middle. So after popping it all around the edge, I do in fact grab my stick, as you can see, and drag it towards the edge of the plate. The only problem was, as I later found out, that whilst I was doing this, I was in fact catching the bottom of the plastic and putting little tiny grooves in the plastic that went all the way through to the plate. I mean, all this effort and all I really needed was a thin edge. There's 2 reasons for this. 1, it provides a barrier to stop the resin from pouring everywhere, and 2, for decorative purposes. The thing is, the logical side of my brain is saying, why are you doing this? You've been at it long enough to know how the resin works, what doesn't work, what does. And even at this point, I already knew that it wasn't going to plan. So before I poured the main part of the ghost, I moved the crystals once more to the edge of the plate. And usually I would have just left it. But if these stones are on the underside of the piece when the resin's poured, the crystals will end up on the underside of the ghost and you won't see them anyway. So it was finally time to mix up the new batch of resin. Now for this one I'm using black paste from Temu and white paste from Just For You online that is now Apex resin. Now I also wanted this to glow in the dark. And although the white powder from Let's Resin isn't a glow in the dark, it is a neon and glows under a blue light. It was the closest thing I had to glow in the dark, because as you'll see in a bit, when I come to use my pigment, it's empty. So obviously, I got straight onto Amazon Prime. Now I've said before, and neon powders are usually really gritty, but for some reason this white one acts really strange. Because even though I mixed it thoroughly, and I did give it a good mix, when I poured it, it started to have like lumps of the powder settle on the top, which is really strange because I did give this a good mix. So after mixing all my pigments into my resin, it was time to pour the black and white ghost. So I have my white and have my black, and I'm just firstly going round the edge with the black, then the white, and I continue to alternate them and pour them into the middle of each other, just so that I use up the rest of this resin. So with this technique, actually pushing the last layer outwards, and you can see by adding the black I'm pushing the white out, by adding the white I'm pushing the black out, and it's making really nice rings. And I know I'm not one for leaving things there, but I really would have at this point. But because I could see lots of dots of the powder forming on the top, I had to try and give it a good mix to at least try and disguise them, if anything, because this was the bit you were going to see once it was cured. So once I'd poured all my colours, I then left it to cure until it was 90% cured, but still flexible enough to pull off the plastic. And this amount of time will depend and vary on the resin that you're using. But can I just say, I mean, look at that. Those rings would have been absolutely stunning. The ghost would have looked perfect. But already you can see cells forming. But the strange thing is that the cells are forming in the places where there was unmixed powder. So I just repeat the process with this one, but for this I'm using the Let's Resin Neon in purple. I'm also using some purple mica powder as well as some glow-in-the-dark purple powder. And I just mix them all together. And the colour it makes is absolutely stunning. The combination of the three are beautiful. The reason I added the mica powder on top of these other two powders, the neon and the glow-in-the-dark powders alone, are semi-transparent, and I wanted this to be quite solid colour. So this video is a bit of a special one for me, because the whole reason I opened my YouTube channel nearly 3 years ago was because I'd been asked to do my favourite make and create a video on YouTube for a craft magazine online. The choice of what to make was mine, so I decided to make these ghosts. And although it's labelled as video number 8, it was in fact my first one. And up until April of this year, I'd only uploaded reruns of my lives on TikTok. So who'd have thought it, nearly 3 years later, recreating a very similar video. But hopefully this one will get a few more views than that one, because I think for the 2 years it was uploaded, it got about 7 views. So who'd have thought it, 3 years later, with over 300 subs, with over 800 watch hours and 66,000 views. I mean, if you'd have told me this 2-3 years ago, I'd have said you were mad. So it's interesting to see the difference in the two videos from then to now. In all fairness, it was a bit rubbish, so no wonder nobody watched it. So with this purple and this white, I'm just going in randomly on top of each other. I didn't want this one to be as uniformed. I wanted some mixture of the two colours. But remember, the problem is that this is freshly poured resin on top of resin that's been curing for at least an hour and 20 minutes. But because the white neon powders from Let's Resin were doing exactly the same thing with this purple, I decided to give this one a bit of a mix as well. And then I left this one to cure for the same amount of time. So as I've said in previous videos, all through October, whenever I've been using resin, I have poured a little bit into this pumpkin. And this is part of the giveaway from video number 73, linked above. So again, I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody that's liked, commented, subscribed, etc. And if you haven't already subscribed, if you could do so, I would really appreciate it, as it is completely free. And if you hit that bell, you'll get notifications on further videos. And the winner for the giveaway will be done on my Halloween special on the 31st of October. So I was probably a little bit too impatient with this one, and because the difference in the curing times with the resin, it wasn't exactly my best, but as it turned out, it looked like it was kind of floating by the time it had finished. So I'm just peeling it off the plate, and then I needed to find something to drape it over to give it its shape. So for this one, I'm using a plastic cup, and depending on the size of the ghost you want, is depending on what you drape it over. So rather than waste a pair of gloves, I thought it'll be alright. I'm just going to tug it a little bit here and move it a little bit there. And you'll see, By the end of it, I was absolutely covered in resin. My fingers stuck to it a little bit. It was difficult, to say the least. So I'm just draping it around this cup just to get it the way I want to. And for the purple one, I popped on top of a gin bottle because this one was a little bit smaller. But as you can see, I think I did it a little bit too early, purely because it was stuck to the plate from where the grooves had gone all the way through. This is now nearly fully cured, but I'm still not quite happy with the shape, so I wanted to squeeze it in a little bit. So I'm just popping it inside this plastic jug, just so that it'll hold its shape until it's 110% fully cured in about 5 or 6 hours time. So I'm just making sure it's the way I want it and all the pleats and folds are in the right place. And then I leave this overnight. Like I said, this one was a little bit too thick. So this is the one that I draped over the gin bottle, and it is rock solid. Because of the difference in curing times with the resin, this one was incredibly difficult, and the plastic, because of the holes in the plate as well, had really stuck to the mould. I did in fact pop a little bit more plastic before I draped it over the bottle, a thicker piece, because I could see that this was happening. This was purely my fault because the resin had gone all the way down to the plate. So I took off as much as I could with great difficulty, and then decided that, one, I wasn't happy with these ones, so I was going to start again, but two, where it had all dripped, you couldn't see the stones were on the inside. So it was now time to take the plastic out of this piece. Now, because this plastic was a lot thicker, this was a lot easier to take out. But again, I'd lost a lot of the detail for the stones. One, because I'd poured it too deep, and two, because I was a little bit too impatient. So after removing this plastic, this is the one that I said looked kind of like he was flying. And I am really disappointed about the fact that the stones are on the inside. But with some googly eyes, I think he's kind of cute nonetheless. And I do actually like the colours. We'll find out if he glows in the dark. So although he doesn't stand up straight, he does stand up. And the purple one I'm going to be attaching to a piece of string like a hanging ornament. And of course adding some googly eyes. So because I wasn't quite happy with the way these have turned out, I decided to go again. So we go for round two, using the thicker plastic this time. But I am using different colours. So for this I'm using some green and orange mica powders and some glow in the dark. And we've also got some green stones and some black obsidian. So I've got my resin and I'm mixing up two different colours. So I'm mixing the black, because we're going to be using black in both of them, and then I'm mixing up the green and the orange. So the black I'm using here is the Temu black paste, which is absolutely fantastic, and whenever I'm using paste I like to take it out halfway through, give my stick a bit of a clean just to get any excess paste off, and then mix the rest of it up. That way you're not going to get any unmixed paste in your resin. So now for the orange. For this one I'm using the Let's Resin Neon, and I'm using a glow in the dark orange powder. This one was from a pack from Amazon, I believe. If I can find it, I will try and link it below. And now for the green. So we're going for a grass green and a glow in the dark green for this one. So after I've poured in my pigment, I give them both a good mix, and then they were ready to pour. So this time I'm doing things a little bit differently, and I'm pouring on the green glass chips all the way around, but without resin on this time. And these are just a bag of green glass chips that I got from Shein, I think. And for this one we're going to be using the black and clear crushed glass. So I have a box of mirrored glass and I just added some black crushed crystal to them. And I'm just popping that all around the edge of the plate, again with no resin in. So after I got the stones to where I want them, I continued to pour the resin in, but unfortunately my phone must have completely cut out, or I've deleted the footage and I cannot find it for the life of me. So I'm really sorry for that. So this is the result of the last two. Again, this one was way too thick and didn't like the shape, and I tried to put it on my curing machine and forgot about it, so it was way too cured for the time I got to it. So how many failures are we going to have? This one is, although the colour, again, I was a little bit too impatient when I popped it over the bottle, but it's got a nice shape to it. So we're just going to take the plastic off. So you really didn't need to hear the crinkling of the paper, but this plastic come off relatively easy. Just with a bit of a tug. There were a few thinner bits on the bottom that I was trying not to snap off, because this one had dripped all the way down. But I would say this is the perfect type of plastic to use. So I will speed this bit up for you because it did take a bit. So after a bit of pulling and tugging, as you can see here, it comes out really, really nicely. And this is what we're left with. And I think this is probably the best one of the lot. So we're just going to pop some googly eyes onto them. And I'm just snapping off the little tiny bits to allow it to be able to stand. But yeah, this one actually does stand. So I am going to have to snip off just a few of the edges because there are a few sharp bits on here and we don't want anybody to cut themselves. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the way that this one's turned out. Let's just see if it glows in the dark. So here are the 4 that we are left with. I think we've had 3 relatively decent ones and 1 complete and utter disaster. But I am going to hang this one after popping some googly eyes on him. So I'll show you how to do that. So for this, I've got some googly eyes and I'm using some epoxy 2-part glue to pop these eyes on the front of these. I have got different sizes and this glue is really simple to use. You just mix the 2 parts together. It cures within minutes, the perfect type of super glue. I usually just eye part A and part B and then just give it a good mix together. So after popping the epoxy glue on the back of each of these eyes, I then just pop them on the front. And these were nearly ready. So I have sped this bit up for you because it is just me popping some googly eyes on the front of them, but I think it finishes these ghosts off perfectly. Now it was time to pop the string onto the one that I want hanging, and for this I'm just using my, well, it's a drill, but it's just a push one. It's so easy to use. You just push it into the top and it makes the hole for you. Especially if you're someone that struggles with mobility or dexterity, these drills are absolutely fantastic. So here I've got some, it's like clear fishing string, but you use it for sun catchers and wind chimes. And I'm just feeding it through the hole in the top and trying to make as many knots in the one place as I can. And then I'm popping a little bead onto the string, and to attach that in place I've mixed up a little bit more epoxy glue and I'm sticking just a little touch on either side of the bead just to make sure that it's secured onto the wire properly. I then leave that to cure and feed it back through, and that way, because you can't see the wire, it looks like the ghost is floating when you're hanging it up. So these are the 3 that were any good. So I'm going to leave you with some glamour photos. I've been Tony from Georgie's Gorgeous Gifts. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Stay safe, happy crafting, and bye for now.
Georgie's Gorgeous Gifts, the name you'll know. Run by Tony, making art that glows. Shimmer and shine, let the colors align. Cheap won't last, but the beauty's divine. Pour it, cure it, watch it transform. With Georgie's Gifts, you'll weather the storm.